Now, Wits students have slammed police for their handling of protests over financial exclusion. The students have taken to the streets calling for the university to allow students to register despite the NSFAS funding delays. However, the Department of Higher Education says its hands are tied due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Some of the scenes have been reminiscent of the Fees Must Fall protests in 2015 and 2016.
They do not understand that we are trying by all means to gain access to education. We are fighting for our rights here. We are fighting for our rights. The very same education that they were denied access from. Right now, they do not understand that the police, that there are people, there are criminals out there, rapists, that they are not being able to deal with. But then they have the audacity to come to us and shoot us. We are like harmless.
What about the violence we saw this morning on Empire, where there were rocks thrown onto the road, the roads were blocked? What about that?
We were blocking the road, not the police.
Yes.
We were not on the police. We were blocking the road.
Well, let's talk broadly about the situation at institutions of higher learning this afternoon. And for this conversation, I'm joined by Mandisa Nyiliga. She's the Wits SRC Deputy Secretary General. Lubabalo Nzoyiya, the national organizer at the South African Unions of Students. Nkulego Wayise, the Gauteng chairperson at the SA Vocational Education and Training Students Association, as well as Mandla Shikwambana, the EFF Student Command. A very good afternoon to all of you. Perhaps let me start with you, Mandisa. We have been seeing protests at Wits University by the Wits SRC yesterday as well as today. If you could give us an idea as to what your demands are and what the current status quo is of your protest.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. While our demands were that the academic year cannot proceed because we feel that Wits University is not ready for the academic year to proceed. First of all, some students haven't registered. That same number of 8,142 students still haven't registered. We have students that are on NSFAS and they're still struggling with accommodation and registration. We also have a situation where laptops have not been rolled out fully and most students have not received their data for online learning. So we feel that the university is not ready at all for the academic year, but this is very upsetting because yesterday there were students writing an exam in the School of Accountancy, yet there are a number of students that have not registered yet. So what we are trying to say is that Wits is not ready. We are being met with arrogance because management continues to tell their staff to continue with the academic year. Meanwhile, there's all these issues that haven't been addressed yet.
Now, let me put this into perspective, Mandisa. What we're hearing from Wits management is that 95% of Wits' students are already registered of the 37,500, and so only 5% of the students have to be registered. They say that they have made provision by providing you with laptops. They say they've given you data. Is that accurate?
No, that is not accurate at all because the hardship fund could only assist about 900 students. So what happened to the other 8,000 students, about 7,000 students that couldn't register? Because the hardship fund could only accommodate 900. As we sit here, even us, we have not received data. So we're trying to understand where these students got money to register. We've been asking Wits for the figures of these students that have actually registered, and they have not been able to provide these figures. So what they are saying is actually inaccurate.
Let me bring you into this conversation, Mandla. From UNISA, we understand that the Department of Higher Education has taken out a mandate reducing the number of applicants, or rather the number of admissions for the first year. But you are actually taking this to court. Give us a bit of background about this.
Thank you very much for having us, and greetings to your viewers. Yes, as the EFF Students Command, we took initiative to take the Minister of Higher Education, Ben Zimande, and UNISA to court to seek for the court to actually review and set aside the directives that were made by the Minister of Higher Education to reduce the number of 20,000 students, first-time entering students, to register in the institutions of higher learning. We see that as a demonic directives, and also as denying students to access education, to access higher education in particular. We cannot have a situation wherein the Minister of Higher Education comes and determines how many people per year or how many people in a particular academic year must access education, whatever reasons that they may provide. But also you cannot sit down alone, take a decision in your comfortable offices with air conditioning to say that students in their numbers, be it 20,000 in UNISA, they must not access education. We are for students and we represent students, and we will continue to represent students as the EFF Students Command, and we want all those 20,000 students to be part of the system, to be accepted so that they continue with their educations as well.
Our understanding thus far, Mandla, is that actually the university has admitted already more than the 20,000 students. What is the reasoning that has been put forward by the Department of Higher Education for the restriction in the numbers?
The Department of Higher Education, they are actually basing their argument on the constraints financially, to say they are not going to have enough funding for all those students who will be actually applying with UNISA in this academic year. And we see that as a frivolous excuse from the Minister of Higher Education. Why do we have a minister who was entrusted by the people to serve as a Minister of Higher Education, to provide solution? And one of the solutions that the minister must provide is financial solution into making sure that there is enough funds available to fund students who are readily available to access education. So we cannot sit down here, have a minister who comes to us and say that we do not have money to fund these students. But students already, they qualify to be in the institutions. As the EFF Students Command, we are saying the question of funding should be the ones that must be addressed by the department itself. You cannot want to solve the question of funding by reducing the number of people who must access education. That cannot be a rational or a reasonable thinking or decision to take with the, by the minister, by the way. We are saying to the minister, he must rethink, he must go down, find strategies, find ways on how to fundraise, on how to make sure that there are available funds to give to these students so that they continue and access education and also study, because they want to study and want to change their lives.
Lubabalo, there are some institutions of higher learning that have already started registering students, even though they are still waiting for a go-ahead from NSFAS. What is the ratio of the number, perhaps, of institutions of higher learning that have made this concession and said, look, it is the start of the academic year, NSFAS doesn't quite have its ducks in a row yet, but let's start anyway and register the students and start with the rollout process?
Thank you, Tammy. Let me greet you first and your guest in this discussion. Look, Tammy, what is happening now, it's not something that we have warned government about. If you remember at the beginning of the year when the president was making the SONA, and following that was the budget speech by the minister, Tito Mboweni, we were clear as South protesting against the cut-off budget from higher education. That 9 billion was very critical, that cut of 9 billion, because it meant that there's going to be more challenges than before, as we had. So the immediate crisis now is that there are students who are funded, who are said to be funded last year, and they were registered by institutions. But at the beginning of this year, they started receiving SMSs saying that they were not funded. The institutions had registered them with the belief that NSFAS was going to fund them. So now they're not funded. They have incurred a debt. All the amounts that they have received, they are going to be on their accounts. They must pay it on themselves. So those students can't register. Number two, it is impossible to begin an academic calendar without having to have first years receive their statuses, because it means that those first years can't register. They are not clear to register. So you can't begin classes without having first to clear those students. Now, the immediate crisis is, in relation to your question, is that institutions that have started registering students are institutions that have those concessions such as free registration and other your Wits that fund that they use to fund students. But in the crisis is that the funds that are available, made available by institutions, they are not enough to cover all students. For an example, now, as the DSG is saying, in VET, they only covered 900, and there's 8,000 plus students that is left behind. So because of the 900, we can't then say all is well, then students must proceed. So as we're speaking now, we are on the ground as South. We are engaging political organizations. We are visiting institutions. As I'm talking to you now, after the interview, we'll be at roads. We are going to Fortem with the president of SASCO, making sure that we are in touch with the processes on the ground. And we are engaging student leaders to make sure that there must be no student left behind in this process of registration.
Let me bring in our reporter Zikhona Chona at this particular point. Now, Zikhona, you have been covering the protest outside Wits University. We've been speaking to a representative of the SRC at Wits, Mandisa, who is saying to us that what Wits University is saying about the provision of laptops, the provision of data, that is in fact not accurate information. Talk to us about the level of communication between the students and the management at the school. Does that seem to be streamlined? Are they speaking and understanding each other? Is there a level of trust, a level of credibility between these two?
I think certainly the scenes that we've seen playing out at the university today show a clear breakdown in communication, particularly between the university as well as management. The SRC earlier said to me that they've only spoken to the VC of this university once this year, and that is not enough for them. And as far as communication is concerned around what is happening today on campus, the university has also been very slow in communicating to the media, even because the protest at the university started at around 5 o'clock this morning, and we only got media response at around 12 o'clock this afternoon. So you can clearly see that the communication, not only between the students but also to the public with regards to what is happening here, has certainly broken down. The SRC of Wits University has also said the reason they've resorted to protest action is because they have been in and out with meetings with management of the university to try and relay their grievances, and those talks have not reached a fruitful outcome for them, which is why we are here today and we are seeing the scenes we have seen playing out from as early as around 5 o'clock this morning.
Let me bring Mandisa back into our conversation. Mandisa, we've just been talking to our reporter Zikhona Chona, who's outside your university right now. She's been covering the protests that have been taking place there. Clearly, you are not seeing eye to eye as far as management is concerned. You are not satisfied with the measures that they have put in place as far as the funding is concerned. But let's turn our attention now to the online classes. Yesterday, the academic year officially kicked off with the online classes. We believe that 25,000 students took part in these online classes. How many have been excluded and what are the reasons?
Okay, 25,000 took part, but we can say that 25,000 are those students that were able to attend, maybe students that had data from their own money or students that have laptops of their own. But what about that other 12,000 or 14,000 students that have not received data as yet and have no money for data, that have not received laptops as yet, students that are still at a bit of a crossroads because of NSFAS not saying anything about accommodation, not saying anything about allowances. So what about those 14,000? How can an academic year proceed when there's more than 10,000 students who are not part of the academic year? How can tests be written when there is a number of students that are sitting at home unable to write those tests because of the university itself? So we are saying that it should not be allowed, the academic year should not be allowed to continue until we can safely say that all 35,000 plus students are now taking part in online learning.
Let me just do a quick refresher here. We are in conversation with the three leaders from various institutions of higher learning as we focus on the state of higher learning as the academic year began. Yesterday we've got Mandla Shkwambana, EFF Student Command, Mandisa Nyilika from the Wits SRC, she's the Deputy Secretary General there, as well as Lubabalo Nzoyiya, the National Organizer at the South African Union of Students. So let me pose this question to you, Mandla. We saw that there was an era of fees must fall, an era where students were basically airing their voices and taking to the streets, demanding a free education. Do you believe that the momentum of a fees must fall is going to once again rise up with the situation that we are finding ourselves in now?
We are, of course, in a situation where we are actually reminded that the problems of free education is not resolved. We are actually reminded that we were once we embarked in a struggle of fees must fall, and we are sitting here again with the same problems that we had 2015 going forward. So we are going to actually have a serious campaign. We are going to have a protest which is looming, and it is going to happen. And as the EFF Students Command leadership, we are also on the ground. We are also meeting our students as we are running the Sizofunda Ngenkani campaign that we usually do at the beginning of the year. We are engaging our students with all these problems we are having now. We are actually intensifying and also getting the common understanding from our own students and activists to say what needs to be done. And the solution is that we have no choice but to go to the streets. We have no choice but to go and shout out. I'm very much concerned by the student unions when they come here and say that they're in engagement with other structures and the students' leadership and so forth. And I'm worried that who are those people they're engaging, because we have never had any engagement from SAUS as the EFF Students Command, unless if they are running a parallel campaign, unless if they are running a parallel struggle that which students are faced with here. It's not correct that we must come into the national TV and speak as if these issues are not real. Our people are suffering on the ground, and we must stop playing with words here. We must focus and be on the streets and also make sure that we address issues of the students. When they claim to say they are going around with the leaders of SASCO to engage students, that's the problem we're having in South Africa. The SAUS shouldn't be a centralized institution or a union. SAUS should be a decentralized union where it engages all structures, whether you are from the Students' Command, whether you are from PASMA or any other student movement that you can mention. The problem which they are actually making now is to think that they are engaging students and other structures, but only when they are engaging SASCO alone. There's going to be a serious problem. And this happened previously during the fees must fall. And they want to repeat the same mistake now. And we understand why they are doing this. They are doing this because they are captured, they belong into the pockets of Bob Blade. And now we are saying, if they are truly engaging student structures, we are the other structure that they should be engaging. And we have never been in engagement with these people. Now
Let's do this, Mandla. Let's give Lubabalo an opportunity to respond to the concern that you are raising. Lubabalo, you can hear Mandla saying that they have not been spoken to, they have not been engaged at all. Who have you been engaging with? And as he's saying, why is it that you have not actually reached out to their particular structure too?
Well, I see that Crocodile is very angry that is not engaged. We must put on record that even the TG of the EFFSC can confirm. Yesterday, when we met their branch leaders, we had called them nationally. We had met with Abo Vena on campus, we even called the TG when we had admissions, because the president could not be reached. I think he must find a PA so that he can assist himself in terms of communication, because we did try to reach him and we did not get him. We are engaging, indeed, different political organizations. We are engaging with various leaders in different areas. the statement and the argument, in fact, the allegations to say that we are captured, I take them as outdated statement because they are not real. As SAUS, we have been issuing statements, we have been on the ground, we've been the ones picketing outside Parliament against this budget speech. So to say that we are captured is really out of order. We've been on the media not once, not twice, expressing our position as SAUS on where we stand with the matter. Even now, we are clear on where we stand on the matter of students. We're not going to dilly-dally, not going to play politics because we want people to nurse their feelings. We're not going to do that. But what we're going to do, we're going to continue engaging students. We're going to continue engaging SRCs. Remember, us engaging political parties, it's a matter of courtesy where your union of students will engage with SRCs because president and SGs of SRCs form part of our NEC. I'm sure that if Shikombane have the institutions that they are leading, they should understand that their members form part of the NEC. So we engage other political structures to make sure that we are on par. It's a matter of courtesy from the union. So we can't be accused to say that we are captured by Blade. We can't be accused to be captured by anyone for that matter. They were not a captured union. We are a very clear union, a progressive union. So from our side, we are very clear on where we stand. And we will continuously engage on student struggles as we started our term till the end of our term. We're not going to be playing politics and on who's captured and who's not captured. That's not our role.
Mandisa, let me bring you in here. I mean, you can see what has been unfolding between the FF Student Command and SAUS here. Are students speaking with a singular voice, or do you find that politics tends to sometimes interfere with what should really be a common student battle, a common student fight?
I think that this is beyond party lines, and at this moment, we don't need to be squabbling about this party and that party and who is engaging who. We are facing a national crisis, and I think they can take the University of Wits as an example. We have been working together with the PYA and the EFFSC on Wits, here at Wits, because we see that this is a national crisis, and this crisis cannot be solved by political parties. We need to come together as political parties, different affiliations, because we have a crisis here. Students are about to lose their degree. Students are suffering. This is beyond party lines. So I feel like we need to put differences aside and work towards one common goal. The students on the ground are not saying, hey, I'm EFF, hey, I'm PYA. They are moving in one voice. So I think from our side, our students are moving in one voice, and that's the way it should be everywhere else.
So let me ask you, Mandla, there are 730,000 students who are first years who NSFAS says they're not going to be able to provide for them this year. What do you propose as a way forward? Specifically for first years.
We have no choice but to also make sure that we force the department to actually make sure that they fund this number of students to also be in the system, also be in the institutions of higher learning. Because the question of these students not being funded by NSFAS is that NSFAS does not have enough funds. That's the only basis that the department is actually bringing to us. And we are calling to all students in South Africa, and we are also calling to all the students' movement, also inclusive of SAUS, of course, that we are saying to them, let us go and assist our students, because a lot of students, they are about to lose their future now. A lot of students, they are about to be stopped. A lot of students, they are about to be actually denied access to education. Because if you are saying 700,000 plus students must not get funding from NSFAS, if you check particularly, most of those students who are going to be denied funding by NSFAS are going to be black in majority. And these people who are going to be black in majority, it means that they must go back home, they must go and be some of unemployed qualifying students who should be actually in the institutions of higher learning. They will end up resulting in crime. They will end up resulting in many things which are happening in our villages. And we are saying to the Department of Higher Education, let it be the way, let them find a solution of funding money or funding any type of funds that can actually make sure it's inclusive, it gets all these students who are about to lose their their futures now and bring them into the system, because we cannot sit and relax and allow the department to come to that decision and say, no, we are not going to fund these people. Where are they going? We are calling to all political...
Let me bring Lubabalo here now. Unfortunately, time is not on our side. Thank you very much, Mandla. Lubabalo, we have heard that the Department of Higher Education says that NSFAS will be unfunding some of the bachelor degrees, including the Bachelor of Education, including the nursing qualification as well. Your thoughts on that move?
We have engaged, of course, with NSFAS as the union. I remember recently we just spoke to Andy, the CEO of NSFAS, in relation to the qualifications that are not going to fund. With the B.Ed and the B.Ed, NSFAS have clarified to say that they are going to actually fund those students, but they need universities to comply with the N2F framework so that they don't have a situation where they fund qualifications that are not gazetted by government. So we were saying to NSFAS, we must guard the process of making sure that students, first years who have been admitted in PK are actually taken through the process of making sure that they go to a Bachelor of Nursing. Those who have been taken in they are administered into being admitted into a Bachelor of Education without having these students to be compromised. So we are paying close attention to that. But as we give a guide to government, I think the first step in responding to our challenges will be that Minister Tomboweni must bring back the 9 billion that they cut from NSFAS and the department, because it suggests that we're going to have more crises. That's the first one. Second part, with that, we must call on private sector as well to play a role in this particular problem we're facing, because the skilled labor that is produced by South African universities does not only benefit government, it also benefits the private sector. So we want to call them into the round table in saying that please do assist students because they are in need. The last one is that, as we've said before, we are a union of students. We are going to engage, as we are doing so now. We are going to interact with all student leaders on campus to come up with one solution. We take the suggestion from the president of the EFFSC, and we are going to meet with all other leaders and give a guide to the country as the South African Union of Students.
And we'll leave it at that for now. Let me give you an opportunity, Mandisa, to round up in just 1 minute a proposed way forward. What is it that's going to end the SRC strike now in 30 seconds?
What would end is for Zebulon to come back, our VC, to come back to the table and listen to the demands of students and realize that students are at the risk of losing degree, and allowing students to register. But before that, he must stop the academic year so that those that are still not able to register can register, and that we all proceed in one time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of our guests this afternoon as we unpack the state of higher education in South Africa.